the Bradley Manning trial starts today, one of the biggest pushes we're seeing at the beginning of this is by media outlets demanding a stenographer to record everything, which just seems an absurd request to have to make. I mean, perhaps the only thing I can think of is the court that Fidel Castro faced when he had to go back and write his own account of what took place in that court while he was imprisoned back in Cuba. And I think what was the book, History Will Absolve Me, came out of it. Was his memoir. I mean, it's just absurd that this roadblock to reporting is being placed in front of major media outlets, and hopefully we will see some movement in that regard. Just to give you a recap of what's going on with Manning, some type of baseline. Manning has been held now for almost 900 days. I think it's somewhere around 850 days by the U.S. government before trial. One military judge has already found that at least portions of his internment were inhumane. He is facing a court-martial, in other words, a military prosecution, for forwarding 700,000 government documents to WikiLeaks. According to Reuters, it's the biggest leak of classified information in U.S. history. The issue here is that the government is not charging him simply with leaking. He has already conceded those points. And of the 21 counts he is facing, although he has conceded to minor, or I should say charges that would actually carry 20 years imprisonment, he has conceded that he did leak this information. The question is whether or not, as the prosecution is attempting to prove, he is guilty of, quote unquote, aiding the enemy under the Espionage Act, specifically the violation of Article 104 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, as he is military personnel. What is stunning about this is that never in the history of this country, or at least within the past 150 years, has anyone been charged with espionage for simply leaking materials to journalists. And the issue as to whether or not WikiLeaks is a journalistic endeavor has already been laid to rest by the government's own prosecutors. They have said there would be no difference whether or not Manning had given this information to WikiLeaks or to the New York Times or the Washington Post or whomever. So the precedent being set here by this prosecution, if it succeeds in pursuing this, is that the leaking of classified information can be considered espionage. Now, 150 years ago, I think it was used during the Civil War, where someone published information in a newspaper, but it was in code. It was literally a code to, I believe it was, Confederate forces. So the story itself was a code. It was direct communication in an attempt to message something specific to the enemy. So this is a stretch, in addition to it, of course, having nothing to do with marginity. This is a stretch even based on that precedent. But that's the one that was cited by the government. The problem here, of course, is that it would create a massive chill on the press's ability to report on what the government is doing. As far as I can tell, the prosecution is trying to prove that this was aiding and abetting the enemy because Osama bin Laden wanted it downloaded and may have very well downloaded this stuff from WikiLeaks and presumably stories that were in The Guardian and in the New York Times and onto his hard drive. Now, one must imagine that there were a lot of things, a lot of articles that Osama bin Laden read about America that in some way informed him. It is not clear by at least what the prosecution has offered at this point, or claims they will offer. It is not clear by any public statements or any reporting that this information aided and abetted the enemy in any way. You know, shortly after their huffing and puffing, there was a lot of people going out there, government officials saying, it's not a big deal. We knew all this stuff already. So to attempt to try this guy on the grounds of treason is unprecedented and will have incredible implications going forward in the event that he is found guilty of the Espionage Act, under the Espionage Act. Like I say, Manning has already admitted to leaking. He has pled guilty to several charges, including misusing classified material, which, as I said, will carry up to 20 years of jail time. None of this is enough. A lot of people speculate that the reason why they were taking such a hard line with Manning is because what they were really trying to do was to go after WikiLeaks. And as we've seen over the past couple of weeks, through Eric Holder's behavior in responding to the big outcry that he signed off on a warrant which explicitly said that the act of journalism, albeit criticized by some as bad craft, as practiced by this Fox reporter, James Rosen. They've already said that this act of seeking this information could be considered aiding and abetting treason, espionage. So what did Holder do? He met with the top 5 biggest media outlets in the country, some of the biggest players, and had a supposed off-the-record, apparently some quotes came out, but an off-the-record meeting with them. So what does this have to do with Bradley Manning and their pursuit of WikiLeaks? There have been many occasions where these big journalistic outfits will sit on a story at the government's request. The NSA wiretapping story was sat on for, I believe, a year. The story that the AP had its records subpoenaed involved them sitting on a story for a week, at least. We see many other instances of this, and I imagine there are stories that some of these press outlets have that they never publish. I think there's an intense fear in the national security apparatus that they will not have the opportunity to do this with outfits like WikiLeaks. That they will not have a partner in subjugating information the way that they have had from major media outlets. Now, one could say, and I think there is a legitimate argument to say, that this is in some way problematic. I can't recall, but I believe there were some in the media who knew about the D-Day invasion and did not publish that information in World War II. I could see that the government would be concerned that a WikiLeaks or a non-traditional media outlet may decide that we're not going to do that. Nevertheless, I think this is something that you're not going to be able to stop anyways. And so coming up with a better set of policies that do not end up infringing upon one of the main purposes of the First Amendment in this country, that we have a vibrant press, needs to be found. And I'm, in many respects, just echoing what people like Lawrence Tribe said. Let me quote him. Charging any individual with the extremely grave offense of aiding the enemy on the basis of nothing beyond the fact that the individual posted leaked information on the web and thereby knowingly gave intelligence information to whoever could gain access to it there does indeed seem to break dangerous new ground. Could have far-reaching consequences for chilling freedom of speech and rendering the internet a hazardous environment, well beyond any demonstrable national security interest. The U.S. government is not going to be seeking, supposedly, the death penalty for Bradley Manning, but they could. Under the aiding the enemy provision. So this case is going to be a big deal, and fortunately, there seems to be a lot more press attention given to the case than was given to the pretrial hearings. And I think to a large extent that has to do with the lack of reporters being there, short of people like Alexa O'Brien and Kevin Gostola and one or two others, shaming the big media people. And that story really getting out.